ViolarulesReacts here, and welcome to another blind commentary. I'm going to be continuing the Cleave reaction with part 3 called Platitudes. So let's go ahead and get started.
Lyra's tail flicked back and forth as she gazed through her bedroom window at the streets below. There wasn't much traffic this morning, just a few ponies running errands, or maybe they were going to the train station, or on a secret mission from the princess.
If I'm not mistaken.
She fixed her eyes on a stallion trotting by a leisurely pace. What kind of music did he like? What color would he want to paint their dining room? How many kids did he want? What would he give her for their 10th wedding anniversary?
What's your name, handsome?
She'd probably heard his name before. Remembering details like that wasn't her strong suit.
Blue coat, dark blue mane, what's his cutie mark? Music notes? Awesome!
You're not some classical snob, are you?
The stallion glanced at the clock tower and quickened his pace. Lyra gave him one last look before abandoning
musical snob?
No parting out was out there looking all that interesting. She retreated to her bed, treading on old sheets of half-written music and collapsed on the piles of blankets.
Trying to figure out who
floated off the dresser in the corner, the one clean spot in the room, and made its way to her waiting hooves. She lay on her back, with the lie cradled in her forelegs, idly playing it with her magic. Her ears perked up. Whatever she was playing right now wasn't half bad. The rise and fall of the high notes bordered on catchy. She plucked a string with slightly more force, repeating the melody over and over.
I like the music choice.
Maybe this was it. The first song she'd actually finish. Her excitement usually waned about halfway through, but maybe that wouldn't happen this time.
It's 8:30, Lyra!
Fitting, because it's almost Christmas.
Bonbon shouting echoed up the stairs. And with that, the melody was gone, out of Lyra's head before the lyric strings had even stopped humming.
And more undertone music. This is Flowey's theme.
So am I. There's a dozen trays down here that need decorating before the shop opens.
Okay, so Lyra was giving the
arguing
task
would just make Bonbon sad, and that would make Lyra sad. That just left grudging acceptance.
Candy.
Something both of them were quite familiar with.
Toriel's theme from Undertale.
I'll be right there.
Once her lie was safe on the dresser, Lyra rolled off the bed and opened the door. Directly across the hall was Bonbon's room. Why did she keep her bedroom door open all the time? Was her perfectly clean room so clean that it looked more like a museum exhibit? Supposed to be inspiring or something? It wasn't. It looked like no pony lived there at all. Lyra made her own bed, once in a while, largely against her wishes, but it never looked like Bonbon's, like it'd just been delivered from the bed factory, fully made and never been used. Lyra gave the immaculate display an eye roll and continued on. Mom and Dad's master bedroom, unused and untouched, came next. Candy Heart's room was by the stairs. The door was shut, but when it came to Lyra's imagination, that hardly mattered. Beyond that door wasn't the immaculate husk that Bonbon had turned it into. Beyond that door, she saw shelves lined with old spellbooks, boxes filled with smelly potion ingredients, and one, not quite right filly, staring at a wall that was both blank and not blank. At least the details were fading now. Lyra had brand new happy memories to replace the old scary ones. Maybe someday the bad memories would be gone completely, and her head would be filled with nothing but gawking at stallions, making music, and decorating candy. She couldn't wait. She skipped, sliding down the banister, once again, to avoid an argument, and made her way to the kitchen. Her stomach growled as soon as she inhaled. It always smelled delicious in here. Bonbon could probably stew up a rusty horseshoe and make it smell good. And not that she ever allowed something that dirty to enter her inner sanctuary. Even with the pot simmering over the stove, countertops covered in mixing bowls, and tray after tray of nearly finished candies, the kitchen still felt clean somehow. Bonbon kept everything that way, right down to the neat line of decorating supplies that she set out for Lyra. Bonbon walked over and nodded to the trays.
Here's the candy to decorate.
Lyra saluted.
Right. What flavor is it? Orange walnut. Aww. Again? That's what they're out of. Ponies keep buying it. So, where's breakfast?
Bonbon paused. Bringing up anything other than candy during prep hours tended to do that. At least it didn't make her angry anymore.
Well, that's good, I guess.
Pancakes. Yours are in the oven. Woohoo! Pancakes! Just please, don't eat them in the kitchen. I won't.
Bonbon smiled. At least until she dropped back into business mode.
I'll be in the shop.
Bonbon settled into her spot behind the counter, double-checked the time, and opened her ledger. She had exactly half an hour before the shop needed to open. time enough to review her notes and hopefully wipe down the display cases one last time. Sweeping the floor again would be nice too, but she just couldn't squeeze that in. If only she could bring herself to change the settings on her alarm clock. Her two favorite smells, chocolate and graphite, swept her troubles away. The ledger before her was a grid of numbers, a dense jungle of information that she'd often get lost in. She sold 10 pounds of fudge yesterday, but only 8 the day before. Lollipop sales had alternated between 18 and 16 for 3 weeks in a row. There had been 6 more ponies in the shop yesterday than the same day last month. If only she knew what it all meant. There had to be some sort of pattern there, something useful that could be divined from her near-perfection bookkeeping. Lyra could probably find that pattern. She was good with patterns. If only she could focus on a sheet of paper for more than 10 seconds, or be trusted not to smear chocolate on the edges. That thought prompted Bonbon to recheck the time and glance at the kitchen.
Stop taste testing, Lyra!
Lyra responded to a mouthful of stolen chocolates.
Oh, Bonbon.
Bonbon sighed and turned back to her ledger. Pattern or no, there was a certain comfort to her numbers. All the logic and precision of a recipe distilled down to an essence so fine that she herself couldn't fathom it. The most comforting number of all was the date that began each row, the steady march of time carrying her away from her near-disastrous first day running the shop, and from her horrid creation by Candy Heart's hooves. Time marched ever onward, and she needed to do the same. That was the only solution. That was the only thing that kept the panic attacks at bay. She just needed to keep getting up every morning at the exact time, cook, sell candy, clean every inch of the house, and go back to bed. That was the recipe for life. The logical sets of steps that carried her safely through
Candy
time
Heart comes back, it's going to put a wrench in
grabbed
her
a cloth, and
daily
started polishing.
routine.
Hoof and nose smudges on the display cases were to be expected. She had to accept that. She's fought with herself every day to accept that. At least all the grime that the customers dragged in washed off quickly. Just a few wipes with a wet cloth brought back the mirror-like shine that she expected. Nothing less would do for her signature candies, although it wasn't just hers anymore. Thanks to Lyra, each metal tray was a canvas, and each bonbon was a portion of an edible painting. This was another side that could rob Bonbon of untold hours. She understood the process perfectly. Lyra spread colorful frosting and sprinkles on the bonbons, often in lines that marched over candy and metal alike. The most of her straight lines weren't very straight, and her circles were far from perfect. What was perfect was the effect. A pattern that Bonbon and the rest of Ponyville could clearly discern. What had once been 6 dozen caramel oak swirls laid out in a grid was now a picture of a pony in the park. Colts and fillies would all but drag their parents here as early as they could, just to see the pictures before the daily ties of sale decimated it. She had been witness to 3 minor squabbles over who was going to buy the last bonbon with a pony's face or cutie mark on it. Bonbon fixed her eyes on a single bonbon. One was with a tiny Pegasus on it, and scowled.
They all taste good. Why do they need pictures?
So they sell wasn't a good enough answer. How did Lyra come up with these images on the spot? They must have been things she saw outside. Bonbon shivered at the thought. The world outside the shop was equal part confusing and revolting. The limited, and highly sanitized, view she got through the shop windows and Lyra's decorating was more than enough. Bonbon let out a gasp and turned to the clock. She wasted too much time thinking again. The shop was due to open in under 2 minutes. The display case and Bonbon would have to get through the day with only 1 pass of polishing.
Lyra, I need to open the shop. Where's the candy?
Lyra hurried through the door with the missing trays in her magic grasp.
I'm coming. Where's the shopping list?
Bonbon watched the display case back panel glow and slide open. A smooth and sterile feat she would forever envy. Lyra's latest creation depicted ponies flying orange kites in front of Town Hall. One tray never made it out of the kitchen, as expected. Lyra's taste testing had prompted Bonbon to start preparing 1 extra tray with each batch. Lyra tapped her hooves.
So, shopping list?
Bonbon blinked.
It's Tuesday, Lyra. Wednesday is shopping day.
Lyra smiled and clapped her front hooves together.
Awesome. I'm off to Sugar Cube Corner now.
Bonbon counted the tap-tap of Lyra's hooves and the latching of the door. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The shop didn't open for another 15 seconds. She could take 5 leisurely, annoyance-free breaths in that time. No pony was demanding volume discounts, asking if she remembered their usual order, or smearing their dirty hooves across the glass. Best of all, no pony was humming annoying music.
She should know their usual
double boiler
order
to the
she
face
writes
was probably
down
the only
everything.
thing that could cure Lyra of that habit. A pounding sound interrupted Bonbon in the middle of her third breath. Her eyes flew open, and she faced the shop door. Some pony in a hooded jacket was standing at the doorway. They knocked again, making the close sign on the inside of the door bounce and sway. Bonbon checked the time. Opening the shop a few seconds early would be far less painful than listening to that cacophony.
I'm coming! I'm coming!
She flipped the sign to open, unlocking the door, and stepped aside so her first customer could enter.
Welcome to my candy shop.
Candy.
The pony stepped through the door and lowered her hood. A shock of white hair, burned black in places, flowed down around her face and over her hornless forehead. She smiled a wide, eerie smile and spoke in a voice made raspy by the potion fumes she'd breathed in her youth.
Hello again.
Okay, I'm going to cut this video off because apparently this tune at the end is copyrighted. So, because part 1 got claimed for this music. But yeah, so yeah, Candy Heart is back again. So let's see what this, what the result of that will be in part 4, which is called Unity.
On her way home, Lyra couldn't stop licking her lips, even if all the ice cream was gone. Bonbon might have become the master of candy, but when it came to milkshakes and cookies, there was just no standing up to the cakes. Their shop was everything that Bonbon's wasn't. Noisy, crowded, and inviting.
So I guess we
Only
might
came
have
to
Pinkie
Bonbons
Pie
to buy
this one.
candy, but they came to Sugar Cube Corner to spend a few relaxing minutes in the company of a sugary escape. In Lyra's case, it was just a few minutes. Sometimes she'd sit in there for hours, oogling stallions in closer corners than her bedroom window allowed, spending her allowance on dinner-spoiling goodies, trading jokes with Pinkie Pie, and half wishing that she'd brought her lyre. Taking it out of the house sounded too scary. What if she lost it? What if it fell on the ground and broke? She couldn't take a risk like that. Not with her lyre. Counting was a huge pain, but even she knew that the precious instrument cost a lot more than she could ever afford. Mrs. Cake was so nice to count out the bits for her all the time. All Lyra had to do was dump some on the table, and the kindly mare would count out what she owed. She was older, so maybe she knew Mom and Dad. Sometimes Lyra wondered how she could ask her about them. Slowly losing Candy Heart's scary memories meant losing the fun ones too, like the birthday parties where other falls actually came over. At least she always had the picture of the mantle. Looking at those moments frozen in time helped her remember more. If she spent enough time staring at them, she could probably remember a lot, but not fast enough to starve off boredom. She stamped her back hooves as she walked, attempting to tap out one of the elusive rhythms that never fully left her head. Where was her notepad when she really needed it? If she could just get one of those songs written down already. Dark clouds blotted out the evening's dim sunlight. Lyra looked up just in time for a raindrop to hit her head between the eyes.
Aww, rain.
The sky offered a mighty thunderclap in response. Forget music, Lyra needed to get home before the streets felt all muddy. Bonbon would kill her, or at least yell a lot, if she tracked mud through the house again. Getting muddy meant she'd have to take another shower too. One trip through the agonizing plain white shower stall per day was plenty. The shower head hiss didn't even drown out her singing.
That's funny that she finds taking a shower boring.
She galloped down the street, zigzagging sometimes, as she wondered if she could dodge raindrops, and finally reached home. Entering through the shop was a bad idea, especially if she was muddy. The side door that led to the kitchen was an even worse idea for the exact same reason. That just left the front door, the one that led into the living room, just like a regular house. She came to a halt on the front door, safe under the awning and barely wet at all. She stuck out her tongue, first to mock the weather, and then to try to catch stray raindrops. Neither worked very well. Thunder boomed again, and her original get inside really fast plan came to mind.
Oh, maybe we have hot chocolate.
With that happy thought, Lyra turned the handle and stepped inside.
Hot chocolate, and marshmallows, and cinnamon, and...
Something cracked under her hoof. Lyra looked down and gasped. One of the mantel pictures was right there. Mom and Dad, on either side of a bunch of shattered lines in the glass instead of the baby Candy Heart shown on the film beneath. She started levitating the crushed picture frame to eye level and noted the rest of the room in the process. Chairs lay on their backs and tables on their side. The floor was littered with shards from smashed pictures and shattered vases. The bookshelf on the far wall, which Lyra never touched and Bonbon only dusted, had been tipped over on the top of the flipped couch. family photo albums, equestrian classics, and an 8-volume beginner's guide to psychology were scattered on the floor. This wasn't home. Home was gone, possibly forever. Even Bonbon's cleaning and Lyra's imagining couldn't put this place back just as it was, frozen in a bygone age when Mom and Dad were still around, a state of being never wanted, altered, or touched by their daughter in the years that followed. Lyra's legs wobbled. She felt lightheaded. Her breathing was shallow and quick. She needed to do something, but what? Someone else decided for her. A shadow rushed through the kitchen door and slammed into her side. Suddenly, Lyra was on the ground next to the picture frame, flailing her legs and screaming while this hooded monster of a pony kicked her in the ribs. The wall by the front door pressed against her back, and the floor pressed against her side. Everything else belonged to the pony standing over
Candy
her.
Heart has to subdue them before she...
and again, as did her screams. Finally, the pony moved to her stomach,
reabsorb them,
delivering one well-placed blow that doped the air from her lungs. Lyra lay there, gasping for breath, blinking away tears, and wondering why this was happening. Who was this pony? Why did they ruin her home and want to hurt her so much? What did they do to Bonbon? How did they get in? Where was her lie? And then, the pony lowered her head. Lyra's desperate question coincided into something else entirely. As much as getting knocked down and beaten hurt, and as scary as it was to have her home violated and a stranger take her by surprise, nothing could suppress the raw terror of knowing who was standing over her. Candy Heart pressed her hooves into Lyra's aching ribs.
Hurts, doesn't it? Losing my horn hurts a whole lot more.
The kicking started up again, and Candy Heart adopted the same grimace she wore the night of the incarnation.
I guess she would be mad that Lyra got her.
Where's my books and my ingredients? It took years to collect all of it.
Candy Heart aimed for Lyra's cutie mark next.
And you took my old lyre. I should have buried it. I would have cut all the strings and tossed it in the river if I'd known some third of a pony was going to turn all my mistakes into...
Lyra managed to whisper,
Sorry.
Candy Heart stared at her for a moment and shook her head.
Pointless. It's pointless. 6 months. Forced therapy. Still, I can't. Short sentences. Stay calm. Deep breaths. That helps. Helps me focus. Helps me think.
Lyra wanted nothing more than to run up to her bedroom, bolt the door, and strum the lie until everything was happy again. Except things wouldn't be happy again. They couldn't. Simply looking at Candy Heart's dredged nightmarish horror from the depths of her borrowed memories included the dangerous spell and false-smelling potion that led to her life. She knew what was going to happen next, and what role she was going to play in it. She wouldn't live to see another daybreak. At least, not with her own eyes.
Wow.
The aquamarine mare was heavier than Candy Heart expected. She scaled mountains and crossed wastelands to collect potion ingredients. Dragging one tied-up, whining pony with a third of her brain shouldn't have been that hard.
Candy Heart, I guess, is upset that she's still not as perfect as she wants to be.
All of her mind's components were here, split across 3 bodies, reciting the incantation, this time with a dragon's claw she harvested herself, rather than whatever imitation that idiot back-alley dealing had sold her before would fix everything. They wouldn't even need to drink it. Simply having the correct potions present during the spell would realign the magic.
That's why the spell went wrong in the first place.
Position. Right at the edge of the circle she'd drawn on the floor. On the circle's other side was the Earth Pony, still bound, gagged, and looking like she was in the middle of a heart attack. Too bad it wasn't an actual one, considering how many priceless spellbooks and magical antiques she's thrown away. A tall steel pot, the closest thing to a cauldron the kitchen possessed, sat in the center of the circle. Candy Heart had removed it from the stove's heat hours ago, but the green potion within still bubbled vigorously. The crystals hanging directly above swayed slowly in a non-existent breeze, humming sometimes if one were to listen carefully. Except Candy Heart couldn't hear anything, not for the unicorn crying like she was. She paced around and jammed a hoof through her cheek.
You don't need teeth for what comes next, unicorn. So keep quiet if you want to keep them.
The unicorn frowned.
My name is Lyra. You...
Candy Heart pressed down until Lyra's shrill voice became a whimper.
You don't deserve a name. You and the Earth Pony are just accidents.
byproducts of the incarnation going wrong. How do I know that?
She leaned down and bellowed into Lyra's ear.
Because I've been struck staring at the formula ever since. It's on every wall, every ceiling, every piece of paper. And tonight, we're going to fix everything.
She stomped over to the stove and started twisting
that's
knobs.
What they meant by,
each burner roared to life, bringing with it the hiss, smell, and heat of fire.
Mental
then
chalkboard that she had, where she would keep
freezer.
track of how many days
Mom's
she's been in
perfect
the
cookbook
psych
was the first to go. Candy Heart tossed it into the fire and watched the pages disintegrate. Then came Dad's confectionery alchemac, and binder after binder stuffed with hoof-written notes. Each addition to the funeral pyro seemed to raise the temperature of the whole room, and elicit an agonized moan from the gagged earth pony. The wallpaper behind the stove was turning black.
But why didn't she just gag Lyra to keep her from speaking?
In a few minutes, the fire would take them too. By the time someone outside noticed smoke, it'd be too late. The house, the shop, and every last shred of disappointment she called family and childhood would be gone forever.
This is it, ponies. You got two choices. Recite the spell with me, or burn with the rest of the garbage.
She undid the earth pony's gag and braced herself for the crying that was sure to follow. Instead, the pony simply nodded.
We'll do it. Of course we'll do it.
Lyra gasped.
We have to, Lyra. And not just because of the fire. She's right about us. We're not real ponies. We're just parts of one. Parts of her.
Lyra strained her legs against the ropes, grunting and crying all at once.
But I want to go back to how it was. I want to be me. You can't even read, Lyra. You can't read. You can't think on something for more than 30 seconds without getting distracted. And I'm just as bad. I can't stop cleaning and cooking and cleaning and cooking and I can't even figure out what all those numbers I write down mean. I don't want to do this either, but we have to.
Lyra took a great breath of smoke-laced air and shut her eyes. Her struggling became small sobs.
I feel bad for
overtook
them.
Fear.
Okay. I'm gonna miss you.
Candy Heart stomped her hoof.
Enough! Let's get this over with. You both remember the spell?
Both Lyra and Bonbon nodded. The present situation, not to mention company, was enough to dredge up the words they longed to forget. The spell that had once brought them into the world and would now carry them out of it. The potion boiled over as they started to speak. Green liquid oozed across the floor, while the crystals overhead jumped and spun. The 3 ponies began to glow with a golden light that eclipsed the fire's brightness. The light spread through the air in tendrils, joining the ponies, the crystals, and the potions in a web of shared memories and cleft personalities. For a moment, their separate hearts beat as one. And then Candy Heart's eyes flew open. Lyra and that other pony, the one called Bonbon, were still there. She could sense it. She lifted a foreleg to shield her eyes against the magic's glare and found that it didn't help. She looked down and screamed in horror.
What happened?
There weren't any legs holding her up. Her body was floating in midair with no visible support. She dared to check on her back legs and found no back at all. Her tail was gone. Her cheek mark was gone. And the rest of her was fading as well.
What?
Uh-oh.
What's happening?
Their will to live is too strong.
I know I did.
You did.
Bonbon shouted. Anything less than that wouldn't have been audible over the fire.
Then why am I?
Because you're the impurity. You're what the spell was trying to get rid of.
Lyra chimed in next, her chipper voice devoid of its previous anguish.
I can see it now. Oh wow, can I see? You stopped midway through the spell last time, and that's why you split into 3 ponies. The 2 of us have been growing and getting better this whole time, but you're just the same old mean pony you were before. All the good stuff inside you made us, and now that's all that's gonna be left.
Candy Heart attempted to rear up on her non-existent legs, and instead
okay, that was a twist I was not expecting.
Impossible.
She shrieked.
I'm better than all the ponies in Equestria put together. And as soon as I find my talent, my real talent, I'll prove.
let's just go straight into the last part. Wow. I was not expecting Candy Heart to disappear.
As she trotted down the snow-covered main street. A cold winter's evening made every pony into a baker.
It does make sense that she was the impurity.
During sunsets, not big and imposing like Camelot, Manhattans, or any of the other cities she set hoof in. Everything was so clean here, and the ponies were so friendly. If only she'd been able to appreciate that sooner. She tossed back her mane, partially to dislodge the snowflakes threatening to take up residence.
I see it now. I couldn't pick a nicer place to retire.
The word still didn't feel right.
Retire.
Retirement was something ponies twice her age were only starting to plan for. Retirement meant nursing homes, 50th anniversaries, and waiting for grandkids to visit. She wasn't ready for any of that, but she was ready to let the Board of Trustees take over Bonds, her Equestria-spanning confectionery empire. Mom and Dad would be so proud. She brought their candy to the world, one detail-oriented batch at a time.
I'm not retiring. I'm resettling?
That wasn't it either. Resettling is what she'd been doing for 6 years in a row, moving from city to city to expand her empire by day and run co-ops by night. Not that she ever talked about the second part, of course. It all sounded so ridiculous in retrospect. It wasn't like she needed the extra bits or didn't have enough to do with her time. It was probably all Lyra's fault, or even Candy Heart's. Getting a share of the former's creativity and the latter's drive certainly made for an interesting life.
So what are you doing, Bon Bon? You're walking through the town where you kinda sorta grew up, about to meet up with your sister?
She and Lyra never formally defined their relationship. They didn't really need to. Lyra tried anyways, once, and got lost after the bit about rescuing each other from the burning childhood home. Up until the day, the term pen pal might have sufficed.
I guess the house
she started writing
down
the moment they went their separate ways, if only to keep her promise to a then bawling Lyra. Just like their inaugural days of running the candy shop, the first awkward letters grew into something familiar and indispensable. At times, Bonbon even caught herself humming one of Lyra's old tunes while she read about her latest antics. The letters never stopped flowing, not even when Bonbon moved to yet another new city, or when she had to fudge a date or description to keep her former espionage career under wrap. At least once a week she'd bolt the door, sit down by her bedside, and write. Lyra always listened, and always offered great advice on what new candy flavors to try, or where to open a shop next. She possessed creative insight that couldn't be gleaned from Bonbon's never-ending numerical analysis and the buying and selling of sweets. Lyra's letters were always bursting with energy, regardless of if she was realigning Bonbon with her latest musical accomplishment, tearfully admitting another breakup, explaining how hard the princess's school was, or formally announcing her engagement to one of her music buddies. Somehow, reading about all those experiences just wasn't enough. Bonbon had always known that, at long last, she found the impetus to do something about it. Lyra's final letter, the first one postmarked from Ponyville since they both moved away, set everything in motion. Bonbon paused. She read and reread the address printed on the mailbox before her. This was definitely the right place. She didn't need to recheck the letter in her saddlebag, not with her legendary memory. The house wasn't as big as their old one, but that hardly mattered. Unless Lyra planned on having more kids and hooves, all that extra space would have just gone to waste. Granted, this was far from a tiny cottage. Some of the neighboring houses looked to be half this size. She stole a quick glance down the street. The burned-out husk of a candy shop had been replaced with something new. Bonbon couldn't quite make out the sign at this distance. Part of her wanted to wander down there and take a look, if only to give herself another moment to think. Retirement wasn't it, and neither was resettlement. Identifying details like this is what she did for a living, so why was this one so hard? Lyra would probably know. They could talk it over
because
at length
you're trying
for as
to
long as
relax and you don't know
like
what
Bonbon couldn't afford to
relaxation
stay a few extra nights at Ponyville's hotel while she figured out what to do next with her life. She could buy the whole hotel if she wanted. Knocking once was all it took. The door flew open, and Lyra nearly tackled her with a hug.
Bonbon! You're finally here! Oh, you've gotta come inside. I made hot chocolate, and I've got this great idea for how we're going to redo the wallpaper in your room and...
Bonbon laughed and, with practiced ease, slipped out of Lyra's crushing embrace.
Slow down. I'm glad to see you too, and... Did you say... my room?
Lyra's smile was almost too big for her face.
Yeah. You didn't book a room at the hotel. Did you? Well, Actually...
Lyra patted her on the head.
Good old Bonbon. Always planning, always missing the big picture.
Bonbon rolled her eyes.
Well, we didn't talk about me staying over, and you're getting married, Lyra. Why would you want me living under the same roof as you? Is your fiancé even okay with that?
Lyra beckoned her inside. The entranceway walls was lined with picture frames, some immortalizing a moment with friends, some showcasing Lyra's artwork, and one of her playing the lie on a park bench.
He's cool with it. He knows you're my family, and he knows you can make a crazy good butter brittle.
Okay, so cool.
Anyway,
Lyra's getting married.
When he said he wanted to settle down in Ponyville, I knew just what I wanted. A big house with enough room for me, my big hunk of a stallion, and my bestest friend in the whole world.
Bonbon breathed in the scent of chocolate, her one true love.
Are you sure? What if we just end up fighting and getting in each other's way again?
Lyra pulled her into another hug.
That's family for you. Welcome home, Bonbon.
Bonbon started to smile. That was exactly it. She was coming home.
That was a really good story.
So for those of you who are familiar with my channel, you would probably recognize this story as one of my underappreciation macabre reviews from last year. Admittedly, this was meant to be a Halloween special, but with some complications it ends up as my Christmas special, which I guess is fitting for the candy cane. However, since I did do a review of this fic last year, it felt kind of pointless for me just to repeat myself.
Okay.
So instead, I got one or two of the VAs from this to give their own opinions. What do you girls think of this story?
Cleave was an interesting experience. To admit, I did read through some of it while during recording, mainly just to find its next for each character I played. Lyra and Bonbon's relationship was, well, rocky. But to find out that they came from one pony that accidentally split herself into 3 parts was, well, that was a twist not even M. Night Shyamalan could pull out of his ass.
Wow.
And that's saying something polite about it. The ending was pretty satisfactory too, so I quite liked that.
Yeah, the ending was great.
Nice to see that it didn't end in total chaos and heartbreak. It was a nice experience recording it, and packing in so many hours to do my own work as well as record for Cleave was, well, I guess child's play for me, but it was all fun nonetheless. I really had fun.
This story is a very high contrast when it comes to the matter of the dark subject matter that happened toward the end and the beginning of the story, which seems lighthearted. Now, normally these kind of things would be a hit and miss when it comes to writing, but seeing that Bonbon and Lyra's relationship is not that of the romantic, which is 80% of the entire fandom's fanfiction on these two, but it gives a very light contrast seeing how each of them are so different, but yet they never knew that they were really part of one pony once. Now that was something completely unexpected when I first read the fanfiction here when I started recording my part for Candy Heart. But it's a total breath of fresh air seeing that Lyra is the clumsy one and yet Bonbon is the one who, no surprise with her cutie mark, is the one worried about the business end and is the one that is taken serious. Now, normally these type of relationships in contrasts are hit and miss, but with the end when Candy Heart comes in, it seems to work better out in the end. Speaking of Candy Heart, I really enjoy that her character is such a mystery in the first 2 chapters that you wonder is she like a long-lost sister or anything like that. The build-up was a little bit choppy in the beginning in certain places, but as you molded them all together and see the contrast of the character when she reveals herself at the candy shop, you see that she is pretty much disturbed in some ways, but yet keeps it in a cool mind and tries to be somewhat normal just so that she could be inconspicuous. But it was this obstacle of a character that helped our 2 heroines put aside their differences and realize how much they each cared for each other. Otherwise, it would be a very depressing ending if all just seems to die in the end or molded back together into what almost seemed like a disturbed being or whatever would happen in between. Which leads on to, I wouldn't certainly call this too dark of a matter, but the only dark matter is really of Candy Heart, which I believe she was very well developed in here. But that's coming from the voice actress herself here. But it still gave the great opportunity for our two heroines to face these obstacles and put aside their differences. Who knows what would happen in the future if there was a sequel or anything like that. I would definitely give this a high recommendation if you wanted something that has a lot of psychological feel into it on the good side and the bad side.
Indeed. But now we would like to hear some of your thoughts and opinions. What did you think of the story itself? Or what did you think of this particular dramatic reading? Were you entertained? Did you enjoy our performances? Is there anything you think might have been able to be improved? Leave it down below and give it a special big thanks to all the voice actors who took their time out of their day to make this possible. And as always, we hope you enjoyed this project, and we hope it was worth your time.
It definitely was. I really enjoyed this series. I also really liked the story. The VAs were really, really good. It was a surprise to me when Candy Heart went to do the incantation and ended up being the one that disappeared. I was not expecting that. I was expecting it to just be a typical, oh, she absorbed them back into herself, but she still feels empty despite doing that type of ending. I guess that's because of the Grimdark in the title. Although, I don't know if I would call this a Grimdark. Like, I get why that it has that title. It's, like they said, it's psychological. And you have the part where Candy Heart beats up Bonbon and Lyra, especially Lyra, in a pretty brutal manner. But, maybe I'm just used to the Grimdarks that I listen to being a lot darker than that. I would say this is more of a dark fic or even a dark comedy because I laughed more than I felt scared. But then again, as you heard, if you watched the whole entire thing, all 3 parts of this that I reacted to, well, there are 5 parts. The 3 videos where I reacted to all, this is what I'm trying to say. I pretty much could predict the plots almost. Because like it was pretty obvious from the start that Lyra and Bonbon came from Candy Heart, except that I didn't know if she had already evaporated at the beginning, but no, she was just in a psychiatric ward or something for a really, really long time. And though it never did touch on how she lost her horn, did it? Was it the incantation that caused her to lose her horn? Or did she lose it prior to that and she was trying to fix it with the incantation by getting rid of the parts that she felt were responsible for her losing her horn? That was the only thing that wasn't clearly explained, I feel. But yeah, I really enjoyed this story. Blazing Inferno did a good job writing it, and everybody else did a good job voice acting it, and AJ Pony did a good job narrating it. I'll put a link to AJ Pony AP's channel in the description below. Be sure to check him out. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, give it a like. Also be sure to like my Facebook page and follow me on Twitter, as well as support my Patreon. All 3 links will be in the description below. And subscribe for more. And if you are subscribed or a new subscriber right now, be sure to hit that bell icon so you get notified when I upload videos. This is ViolarulesReacts, signing off. Talk to you later.